You are listening to the global network of podcasters dedicated to the pharmacy profession. Welcome to the Pharmacy Podcast Network.
Welcome to the NimbleRx podcast. It's worth repeating that rapidly evolving technology is making waves of change throughout the pharmacy industry. Patients expect faster, easier, and more transparent digital experiences. At the same time, pharmacy teams face staffing constraints, reimbursement challenges, operational complexity, and increasing demand for clinical services. To make sure you're not left behind, NimbleRx has created this special podcast series to keep you light on your feet in this fast-paced era of pharmacy.
Been waiting for this interview. My name is Todd Erie, founder of the Pharmacy Podcast Network. I've been excited to work with NimbleRx for some time and really understanding where the rubber meets the road. And that is the pharmacy operator, the pharmacy owner out there. How are they leveraging technology to get closer to the patient without bringing on more projects that they have to manage, that they have to design? And it's technology partners like Nimble. I want to have an opportunity to have Kathy Collier with ExpressRx. Say hello to the listeners, Kathy, and give a little reference on yourself and your pharmacy.
Hi, thank you so much for having me today. I'm very excited to be here. I am Kathy Collier. I'm Regional Vice President of Operations for ExpressRx Pharmacies. We are a chain of 26 locations in 8 states. We're mostly in the South, and a lot of our stores are located in rural areas.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And you've grown because I think the last time I talked to you, it might have been at NCPA. I don't know if you had that many locations. So it sounds like you're expanding.
Yes, always looking for new opportunities for sure.
Scott Von Deylen, it's so good to see you with NimbleRx. You've been part of the team. A lot of strategy coming out of the way that you think and the way that you leverage tech to bring more to our independent community pharmacies so that they can spend more time with their patients. Say hello to the listeners just in case they're not watching us on YouTube or something, and give a little reference to some of what Nimble's excited about today.
Yes. Thank you, Todd, so much. It's great to be here. Scott Von Deylen with NimbleRx, Vice President of Sales, and so excited to have Kathy, one of our top customers, with us here on the line today, super user of NimbleRx with her locations and patient populations. We're working on a lot of things, but first and foremost, we are just trying to make sure that our customers are happy with the technology that we provide, in hopes of making the checkout experience with patients easier than it's ever been, more convenient, and saving time and making more money. So excited to have a conversation today.
Well, I am as well, and someone who's watched technology be forcefully infused into pharmacies 15, 20 years ago. And now I don't want to necessarily say it's easier. That's not the key word. I think the better word is now our pharmacy operators understand better. And the advent of EMRs and patient connection and website development and e-commerce. There were so many challenges going between probably 2005-ish through 2015. And then now we've gotten our arms around this. Social media is just on fire. It's taken place. Our mobile phones, for goodness sakes, rule everything that we do, rule everything that our patients are experiencing. They want easy access. They want to check out. The Amazon effect has taken hold. I want the two of you to kind of discuss this, because even though we're at a place in the realm of community and independent community pharmacy and technology, and I think it's rolling. It's like we don't have the obstacles that we did maybe 5-10 years ago. We still want to address the modern patient expectations. We still need to address something that's frictionless, so it's super easy to be involved on an online payment. But I want to hear that from the perspective of you, Kathy, because like me, we're all three of us are old enough to remember with life without a mobile phone, for goodness sakes. But
Exactly.
talk to us, Kathy, about those challenges of getting where we were, that 2005, 2010, 15, and now all of a sudden it's accelerating. Because if you're not accelerating, you're going to be left in the dust, and they're just going to go. Your patients are going to go do business somewhere else.
Exactly. Well, and our patient population keeps changing and the expectations of our patients change, right? So our older population, although they're getting better with their phones, they're not necessarily used to that. But our younger generations, everything is done on their phone. Everything is um, technology related and really kind of not with the personal connection that we originally had when we started our careers. So we definitely have had to pivot and keep relevant in that way. I think the pandemic also drove a lot of those things where we had to figure out ways to still take care of our patients, but kind of lose some touch points so that we weren't touching the same things and so that they could pay things remotely. So all of these kind of accelerated that. For us, we are a smaller company with a very small corporate office. So we don't have the ability or the staff to be able to come up with all these things on our own. We really need to have partners such as Nimble that are doing this work for us and have the resources for us and can provide the tools that, quite honestly, on our own, we can't do. But it's important. And what's surprising to me a little bit is it's not just the younger generation that's embracing this technology. The older generation is probably using it just as much because, they either have people stopping by to pick up medications for them, or they just like the ease of just swinging by, getting it, and not going through the entire transaction. So, for us, we're freeing up a little time at the register where we're not doing the mundane task of scanning your receipt, getting your payment. But now we can just talk to you for a minute, hand you the product that's already paid for and taken care of. And we're taking care of your needs in that way. We're still communicating with you. We haven't lost that very important factor of being pharmacists, but we've taken away some of just the menial work that goes into that. But what originally drove us to Nimble was looking for a click to pay option. And like I said, we just didn't have the resources to come up with that on our own. And so Nimble, we talked to a lot of people, and Nimble gave us that partnership that we were looking for. And since then, they've worked really well with us as far as meeting our needs for our particular workflow with our pharmacy management system. That's what I've really liked is we haven't had to fit into their mold. They've actually worked really well to integrate into our workflow, and they listen to us. I like that a lot.
That is the key, Kathy. It's meeting you where you are, and Nimble being able to surround you and make pivots. But that's exactly what you're doing for your patient.
Right.
When I think of the baby boomers, my mom and my dad, I'm a Gen Xer, millennials, Generation Z, the ones that feel clunky with maybe the adoption of technology is not really necessarily the generation. It's the person that doesn't want to try something new. Because my
Yes.
mom and dad are lightning fast with social media and using their phones, and they have no barriers. However, I'll talk to people my age or even a little younger than me that will be not, I can tell down deep inside, they don't want to use the technology. So it's not like it's difficult. It's like you just don't want to do it. You don't want to take the time to learn it.
Right.
But what I just said is the same attitudes and the same challenges that some of our pharmacy operators are experiencing, and they're blaming other aspects of business and operations with lack of efficiency and lack of connection. And it really comes down to the head and the leadership. That's why leadership is just so important. As a leader in running multiple pharmacies, you had to make a decision at the executive level of saying, we are going to adopt technology because that's what our patients want. That's what they need. Expand upon kind of that shift in mind thinking in order to keep up with what the consumer is demanding.
Right. And you're exactly right. I mean, a lot of the hurdles to adaptation is just the unwillingness to accept any sort of change. And in this case, we need to embrace change. This is the way of the world. I mean, everyone gets their groceries delivered to their front door. You're used to being able to go on your phone and find an item and have it delivered the next day. So pharmacy, we've got to stay. We've got to stay relevant. We've got to stay on top of that. And although none of us want to get rid of the brick and mortar pharmacies, I mean, I hope forever that we always have brick and mortar buildings where you can go and you can see a pharmacist and you can pick up your medications. We do need to streamline it, and we need to make it where it's easier. And at the end of the day, the register transaction is the least important part of the whole process. So if you can free yourself up from the register and they're making the payment online, that gives you a chance just to visit with them about the side effects of their medication, or how they're doing with their medication, or how their recent family vacation was. It kind of goes back to the old school pharmacy, where the pharmacist actually had time to spend with their customer and get to know them. Maybe catch something along the way that their doctor's office hasn't been able to, or help their patient with some hurdles that they have taking their medication. So, for us, we needed to find a way that we could provide this service for our patients, because they were asking for it. More than once we would get, calls saying, how can I pay for this online? Can someone else pay for this for me? And none of us like to just take a credit card number over the phone. That's not a very safe way of doing business. So finding the click to pay options was necessary for us. And there are a lot of choices out there for sure. You've got to do your homework and find the one that works, best for you and your patients. And that's how we came across Nimble.
Scott, Kathy said ease, but what ease really means is efficiency, especially from the operational perspective. And we don't want patients, we don't want people that are in our pharmacies or outside of our pharmacies for that matter. We don't want them to see any of the ropes being pulled or any of the gears turning. Like, it all has to be seamless. It has to feel ease. It has to feel efficient. To talk to us about operational efficiency, how Nimble reduces that phone tag back and forth, the manual checkouts, allowing the staff to pivot from administrative tasks to being back in front of the patient or digging down into something clinical. Kind of open up to our listeners about the philosophies that have come from Nimble that way.
It's a good question. I think, Kathy said a lot of wonderful things there. And she's the one in the trenches on the front line dealing with patients. I am not a pharmacist, for the record. And I've never owned or worked in a pharmacy, but I've been in pharmacy technology for 16, 17 years now. And so I know that Kathy and other owners, are always looking, to your point, for those, how do we become more efficient, and how do we spend more quality time with the patient? I think Kathy just said, right, freeing up some time, taking away a part of the friction, which is the transaction at the cash register that we've, you're talking about generations, like that's how we grew up, right? It was always there. But now with the emergence of these apps, DoorDash is a great example that I always jokingly tell people, hey, you probably don't want to use DoorDash, but you probably use it more than you should, or more than you'd like to, because you become used to that convenience. We've all become used to that convenience. As Kathy said, getting groceries at your door, clicking on an item that you need that is magically at your door 3 hours later so with Nimble, it's no different. It's creating that efficiency for pharmacy that really, hasn't been available until the last few years in the marketplace, creating a seamless and frictionless environment with technology for the patient to be able to just check out, have that medication delivered to their front door, or like Kathy mentioned, right, still so many patients want to come in because they want that interaction at the pharmacy. They like to see the staff, especially some of the older patients who make it a thing to come in. Maybe they buy some front-end merchandise, they talk to the technician, they talk to the pharmacist, but everything's already, been paid for from a prescription standpoint. So I think we've done an excellent job. I wish I could take credit for developing the products. I'm not that smart. I did not go to school for engineering. So that our engineers have done an amazing job and continue to do an amazing job in developing future releases in the product to make it even better than it is today. And then the final thing I'll say is the sort of workflow piece that you mentioned, it does depend on the pharmacy management system. So Kathy has, she's a Pioneer user at all of her locations. Pioneer is a fantastic system. It's one of our many integrated partners. But there are different levels of integration depending on what pharmacy management system that you use. Pioneer just happens to be absolutely one of the best.
I like the fact that it's not limited to the single prescription transaction along the way, because that's not the way the consumer thinks anymore. The consumer isn't thinking linear. The consumer says, hey, I want to check out because I have this prescription, but there might be another OTC item that I want, involved in this order. And then in your perspective, Kathy, especially with texts that are kind of prompted to understand, and certainly our pharmacists who understand, there are over-the-counter products that complement a specific prescription or a specific medication that may complement the therapy. We don't want the checkout experience to limit the ability to put something more in their basket. They already are used to using the Amazon world. They're used to checking out on DoorDash, like Scott had referenced. We don't want limitations. We want to make this as seamless as possible. So talk to us about that experience, the kind of feedback that you've received from your patients. And sometimes the best feedback is no feedback, because then there's no complaints. But has there ever been any of your customers, any of your clients, people in the community that has given feedback to the ease of doing business with ExpressRx?
So at this time, we don't have the option of being able to shop an e-commerce store on our site, just simply because our stores are in 8 states, and we don't have a consistent front end in each one of those stores. So we don't have that option where they can shop for products. Now we can put that on a sale, but at this time, that is something for us to strive for, to have more of an e-commerce site. But we do not have that at this time. We get a lot of great feedback on our customers that do use Nimble to check out, simply because it is easy. The app is extremely easy. It's a text message that comes to them. They can either have the Nimble app, or they can just use the text message link for that particular prescription. You can also, if you take care of your spouse's prescription or other children's, prescriptions, you can take care of it in that way. I really do not get complaints about the Nimble app or how easy or hard it is to check out a prescription. Most people are very happy with the ease of which they can take care of the transaction. It collects the signature, that all important signature that we need for every third party contract and audit that comes along. It captures that, it stores it in our pharmacy management system. So it's just a very easy, simple process. We check the prescription, it shows completed in our system, and within minutes they get a text from Nimble stating that they have a prescription ready for pickup, what it is, and how much it is. So it's a very nice process.
Integration that Scott was mentioning was always the friction point. When I started in the pharmacy industry, it was through pharmacy technology. Scott and I share those kindred backgrounds and similar backgrounds in pharmacy tech. And I remember the dreaded word in a process of evaluation of a pharmacy system was the dreaded API, the integration from one system to the next. And today's programming and the advent of AI not even being, it's not even future, it's here, it's working, it's being utilized. Talk to us about integration, and that is the flow of having your patient record, you have their address, you have all their information, everything that they need. Talk to us about that integration between the two systems and the ease that that's brought to your operation.
I want to say that is definitely the reason that I am so happy that we are with Nimble and not some other products that are out there, because they have been amazing to work with. And I would just say, anytime I hear someone that talks about how they're having trouble integrating with whatever click to pay option they've chosen, even if it is Nimble, I've always said, just talk to them. You must not be communicating with them, because anything we have brought to them, we have worked through. So of course, in the very beginning, it's a learning curve. There's a process to a little bit of a change in our workflow. And how do we how do we balance that? Some prescriptions are still needing to be checked out at the register. Some are hanging in bags and they're already paid for. So working with Nimble to come up with a process that worked with our workflow made it very simple for our employees, but also made us look like we knew what was going on when we walked up to the register. Because for me, one of the most important things was I did not want to look disorganized when we walked up there. So I wanted to know as I was walking up there with the bag in my hand that this prescription was already paid for versus waiting to find out at the register that you'd paid online. So we worked with Nimble. We've developed a lot of programs. They worked behind the scenes in an amazing way to work with Pioneer, our PMS, to become fully integrated where we didn't have to go to a second platform, because that's another barrier, right? If you're having to log into your pharmacy management system, which you're working in all day long, and then also having to go to a separate system to log in and find out the information you need for transactions, that's just one more step for failure along the workflow process. So I really appreciated that they saw the importance to us to have it as a smooth, integrated process rather than two separate steps. And we worked through it. It took a little time. Obviously, that's development on their side that they worked through, which was great for me because, like I said before, we don't have the resources within our corporate office to do that. So the fact that they were willing to do that for us and work with us, and I think it's made a lot of their customers happy that they're able to now just use one platform, which is our PMS system, to be able to process all of these transactions and see the information there. So now when a customer calls, I can see that they have paid for this already online through Nimble versus having to log into a Nimble platform and see that. The cashier at the register can see that information. We even made just little cards that we slip in the bag once we know that it's paid for through Nimble. So the bag, as they're carrying it to the front, they know that this was already paid for. It changes your wording in the transaction. You're walking up and saying, "Oh, thank you for checking out on Nimble. Do you have any questions for the pharmacist today?" Your whole conversation is different versus when you're walking up with a bag that they still need to pay for. Then you're having to have that transactional conversation first before you get down to the nuts and bolts of what you might need to ask the pharmacist while you're there. So I have greatly appreciated their willingness to work with us, to integrate with our system, to listen to us when we said, this is causing a little bit of a pain point for us at the pharmacy. We're getting a lot of pushback from our employees on this step and working through that to fix that step instead of telling us, well, you guys need to just figure it out on your own. They want to fix it on their side because if they fix it for us, they're fixing it for every future Pioneer customer that they may have, and it may also fix it for some other PMS systems that are similar. So that I mean that's the part that I cannot talk about enough. Just the willingness to work with us and make this easy for us versus tell us that we have to fit into the mold of the product that they originally had.
Listening to the needs of the client, the needs of the operation, Scott, that's key in order to be a successful technology provider and not build technology from a developer's perspective, but develop it from the user's perspective, from the operator's perspective, from the pharmacy who has to compete with the national chains and making it feel seamless for the client. So, Scott, talk to us about integration. You did mention that you have integration with pharmacy management systems, but how does that concepts work where you're listening to your patient? What's that cycle of development to bring that back to ensure that that independent community pharmacy owners don't have to worry about gaps and don't have to worry about jumping between systems?
Yeah, the team that we have, as I mentioned earlier, is really amazing. But first and foremost, and you guys have already said this, we do everything to listen to what the client's needs are. I mean, right? And if you're a good salesperson or a part of any good sales process, you're asking more questions and doing more listening than you are speaking. Which is why I could sit here and listen to Kathy talk all day and not even be a part of this interview. And our customers speak loudly. When Kathy has something that she wants, she doesn't hesitate because it's her business and her patients, and that's very serious. And so there's really two sides to the coin I think, you have the patient experience side, right? Which everything is sort of hidden. Todd, you mentioned earlier, they don't see all the strings being pulled in the background, but the side that matters the most is, and everything you guys have talked about, is what are the efficiencies that we can help create within the workflow. And when Nimble first started, to be quite frank, 4 years ago, it was a little bit of a, we had some large gaps. You used the word gap, so I'll stick to that. Where there were some huge gaps in workflow, and the early adopters of Nimble could see the potential of what it could be, and stuck with us and really helped us out develop the technology that we now have in place today that Kathy is talking about, and working with Kathy and other pharmacies all over the country to continue to close gaps, to continue to have a deeper integration with the pharmacy management system, which the integration with the pharmacy management system, that is really an individual relationship with each of those organizations. Pioneer happens to be, again, one of the best, and that team over there is fantastic with how they're willing to work with us to then service Nimble's customers. So I really can't say enough about Red Sail, who owns Pioneer. And so it's just that continuous, it's just like all of us, right? We all wake up professionally every day wanting to do better, wanting to solve problems. And then it's just a matter of the prioritization of, okay, what are my boulders today? What can I not allow to go unfinished before the day is over? And that's kind of our internal, I think, culture and motto here at Nimble, is like, get those 3 big things done. And then, take it day by day and continue to improve the product for the customer, and just know what they want. So you guys said it all really well. I'm just repeating what you said. So yes.
Yeah, I'll kind of add to that too, that Nimble has always been very responsive to us. So if we're testing something out, or if we're asking for a new product or trying anything new, or they're testing a new product, if it's broken or if it's not working exactly as we need it to, they'll either turn it off immediately or get a quick fix in. It's not a matter of, well, you're just going to have to make this work. We're testing it. If something is causing either pain for our employees or for our patients, at the end of the day, we don't want them to know that anything's going on, right? We want it to always look perfect to them. So if there's something that goes a little bit awry in development, and then once we get it out to the real life, if it's not working right, Nimble will turn it off immediately. And I do appreciate that, because that does happen. And at the end of the day, we can talk about things and we can work that out behind the scenes. But if it's getting down to causing my employees discomfort, or especially if the patients are complaining, then it has to be shut off immediately. And that's been very nice that we've been able to have that kind of relationship. We also have a customer service rep that we speak to every Friday. And, some weeks it's just a have a good week. And then other weeks we've got needs, or she's got new things that development's tossing around, and she'll ask us great questions about, how would this work for you? Or what would you think your patients would be looking for if we offered this opportunity? And I do like that it's not, I don't feel like we're just having to accept whatever somebody out there is thinking might be the next good step, but that we're actually kind of part of that discussion, and asked what are our feelings and how would that affect our patients or our stores. My IT department is on there with me, and also my coworker Matt, and we have some great discussions each week. And we can talk about, I think this would be great, I think we need to look at that, but we need to make sure it does this, or whatever it may be. And I appreciate that they'll listen to us instead of just saying this is a one-stop shop, this is what we're doing now, and try to make that work for you. I appreciate that it's more, how can we utilize the services they have?
That digital front door, Kathy, is so important. And if you have a opportunity to transfer prescriptions from a big box environment who does give the customer that front digital store, and if you can't execute and give the patient the same experience, then it makes you look like small beans. I know, and
Right.
on one side, the soul of pharmacy is that independent community pharmacy feel, rather than the fast food, feeling that you get from a big box store. But if you're not playing on the same technological level, and you don't have that, open ease, digital front door experience, then they're going to be like, this is a mom and pop store. They don't have the tech that helps me to check out without issues. Talk to us about that, of competing with these multi-billion-dollar organizations and being able to keep up with the technology.
I mean, that's a very true story to how life is right now, right? Like we aren't the shiny, big advertisement on the corner of, a lot of towns. We are that small mom and pop. Sometimes we might be the only option in town, but then a lot of times we are competing with a big box. And so, although we might not be able to order or offer every bell and whistle that they can, I can for sure offer you customer service like no other. And but I need you to come into my store and see that. I need you to experience that. And so to do that, we do need to have our options that show that we are cutting edge still, and that we're part of the modern age, and that we're doing the things that keep us up to date in technology. Because if we're not, then you wonder, what else are we behind on? If you never come and see us, you have to wonder, as a pharmacy, are we up to par if we're not even in the digital age? So it is very important to have these options out there. I mean, for a lot of people, they may be fine with just checking out online, swinging through the drive-through, have a great day and moving on. But, eventually those people may become parents, or they may be taking care of parents, and they may come to really appreciate the fact that they can come in and ask someone who knows them, knows their family, ask them a real question, versus everything just being impersonal and through a phone or through a computer. So, it may not be important to you today to have a mom and pop type feel pharmacy that you can go to, but someday it will. Someday you may be on a medication that's important and that you've got a lot of questions about, or you may be caring for a loved one that you've got a lot of questions about, and you need to have that person that you can contact, that's a real person that can show empathy, that can answer your questions. I mean, you can hit AI with a lot of questions, and they'll probably give you some very good answers, but they're not going to personalize anything to you, and they're not going to look in your face and see either the fear or the sadness or the discomfort that you may have. And that's why we need people. But we also need to understand that there's a lot of people that are going to get to us through a digital platform of some sort. And so here again, with a small corporate office and a very small IT team, we may not even be aware of a lot of technology out there until there's a lot of players in the market. So having some resources that we can go to that are out there all the time, looking for the next step and looking for what the next new digital presence is going to be, is so helpful for us, because there is just no way that we would be aware of everything that's out there.
That's what your tech partners are there for, and
right.
Well informed.
They're very important.
That's right. So what excites you about the future of independent community pharmacy, Kathy? Because there's a lot of our owners right now are going through transition. They're either designing and preparing for the future, or they're getting out. And it's just like, I hear
Absolutely.
a lot of it's like one or the other. So what are you excited about for the future of independent community pharmacy?
I'm really excited to see how we get to expand on some of our clinical services that we can offer. Of course, every state is so different. And being in 8 states, we've got some states that are very progressive in what we're going to be able to do with test to treat options and, immunizations. I mean, just all the things that some states allow us to do. And then other states are a little further behind, and I hope that they catch up pretty soon. But in Arkansas, where we're at, which is a very progressive pharmacy state, there's a lot of things that we can do with test to treat options. And, we're needing to educate the public on the fact that you can come into a pharmacy and get tested for strep or for flu and get a prescription while you're there. It's not a 2-stop, an urgent care and then the pharmacy. In a lot of states, you can now just go to the pharmacy, get tested. If you're positive, they follow a protocol and can get you a prescription right there. So for us, we need our technology partners to help us grow into that, right? So it's either, not necessarily making an appointment, because pharmacy is still on for the whole kind of a walk-in business. Appointments may be great someday, but for the most part, it's a walk-in business. But just having a way for us to let patients know, hey, you don't have to go to an urgent care and then come to the pharmacy. You can actually go straight to the pharmacy, get the needs you need, and walk out with your prescription and not have to make 2 stops. So I think those are some great things coming down the pipeline. Basically, for pharmacies to continue to grow and exist, I mean, we've got to look outside the box of not just putting pills in a bottle. We've got to see what else can we do for our communities and for our patients that provide the healthcare that they need, as well as also get them their prescriptions. But we can't have our whole business tied to just pills in a bottle. We've got to grow and expand. And here again, I don't think there's one person that can stay up to date on everything going in the world to be able to know what's the next best step for pharmacies to continue to grow. I think it's extremely important for us to have teams of people that we work with that are out there coming up with these new plans, and how can we execute them, and how can we all work to the top of our license to provide the healthcare we need for patients and continue to grow our businesses.
You said it. One of the fastest growing sectors inside community pharmacy is the long-term care pharmacy at home model. And if you don't have a payment mechanism to make that environment super easy, be able to make everything seamless, it's going to be very hard to grow, because it's going to feel clunky to the client. It's going to feel clunky to the patient's caregiver or someone that's in touch with them. So having NimbleRx to be part of that solution is key. Scott, a shout out to you and your team for the diligence and the work that you're doing. The representation of the pharmacy industry, you're right alongside us, and it's exciting to see you at conferences and talk with you about some of the new stuff that's coming out. Thank you for sponsoring this podcast and the series that we're going to continue to expand upon. Kathy, you are a rock star. Congratulations on your continuing success with ExpressRx. And if our states can just follow Arkansas and Tennessee,
Absolutely.
things are going to be good.
If we get nothing else out of this message, if we could get the other states to follow along and realize that community pharmacies are an asset, and if we just had more power to help the communities that we're in, I mean, it would be amazing. So yes, shout out to all those states that need to follow along.
Right. Scott, thank you so much for doing this and for being part of the Pharmacy Podcast Network. And shout out to our listeners. If you do not have a solution, if there's you're lacking integration, if you're frustrated, just reach out and ask questions. Just reach out and just say, hey, how does this work? How does this integrate? How fast can we get it implemented? NimbleRx.com. Once again, that's NimbleRx.com. Scott, can't wait to see you at the next national trade show and maybe sit down and get some bourbon or some ice water or something.
That sounds fantastic. I look forward to it. And Kathy, thank you again. You are, I will echo Todd's sentiments, an absolute rock star, and we love working with you. So thank you both.
Thank you for having me.